All right. We're now live on YouTube for Soup and Study number 4. And tonight's topic is In the Footsteps of Moses. Tonight we're... Footsteps, yes. New Balance. Nike, what did he wear? Actually, he was told to take off his shoes, right?
Right, exactly.
That's a big part of the theme.
No, it was at the burning bush.
Sandal. You're right.
Sandal.
Yeah.
Hi.
So, it's very exciting. We're starting the book of Shemais, the book of Exodus. And we're going to learn some lessons from Moshe Rabbeinu. It is boiling hot, the soup. So is the topic we're studying. So, very apropos. Okay. So, when we think about Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, we don't often think of him as our buddy. You know, he's our teacher, he's our leader, he's a prophet, the man who led the Jewish people out of Egypt. But as we'll see when we explore his background, let's just say he had a colored past. That's what we'd say about a guy like Moses, filled with all sorts of contradictions and challenges. He was born, of course, into a highly distinguished family. His father was the leader. But where did he actually grow up? Where was he educated? In Pharaoh's palace. And for many years, he was a shepherd in the desert. And it was specifically in the desert, while he was shepherding his sheep, that he merited to the revelation of God at the burning bush. And all of this came along with many disappointments and challenges along the way. And as we'll see, it was specifically the challenges and the mishaps that happened along the way, which led him to great leadership. Yes, what's your question about Moshe?
How he was a teenager or adult or grown up?
He ran away from Paray when he was a young adult. So he was like 20 years old.
Did adult just
a young adult, yeah.
Like he's like young to like old
like Yankees age. That's a very good question. So in this lesson, you added water to that? Okay. In this lesson, we're going to try to follow Moshe's life story, his footsteps, and learn some guidance for our own lives. I think it's better to sit next to me, okay? Yeah. Okay. So, opening act. Paray makes a terrible decree. And this is source 1. Larry, why don't you? Open scene.
Okay.
Scene 1.
Pharaoh instructed his entire nation, throw every newborn boy into the Nile and keep every girl alive. A man of the house of Levi went and married the daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was good, she hid him for 3 months.
Okay, so there was something really good about this boy. You know, every time, thank God we have 4 children. Every time we go to the hospital, I take a look at my child and I say, is this a good one? Is this, so far, 4 out of 4, they were all good. But what does it mean?
What's the guaca?
Shahakal. So, but what does it mean that the child was good? So let's see what Rashi comments on that, if you want to continue.
He was good. When he was born, the entire house was filled with light.
So that's pretty miraculous and unusual that a child quite literally lights up the home. Of course, every child brings light and goodness and pleasantness to the home, but to literally light up I don't know about bad guys. We're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu now. So Moshe Rabbeinu lit up the home. So they knew that this was not a regular child. So the Talmud tells us that about what happened amongst the Jews as a result of the decree to cast the... That's right. Moshe Rabbeinu was going to be a Talmud Chacham and a Tzaddik. So what happened to the Jews as a result of the decree to throw the children into the Nile? And Amram, Moshe Rabbeinu's father, who was the leader of the generation, the spiritual leader of the generation, he was an influencer, not on Instagram, but in real life. He influenced the lives of the Jewish people around him. So, Steve, source 2.
The verse states a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. Where did he go? Rabbi Yehuda bar Zavina says he went according to the advice of his daughter Miriam. A sage taught Amram, the father of Moses, was the leader of his generation when he saw that the wicked Pharaoh, said, throw every newborn boy into the Nile and keep every girl alive. He said, we are laboring for nothing by bringing children into the world to be killed. Therefore, he went and divorced his wife. All others who saw this followed his example and divorced their wives.
I know why.
His daughter,
One second. Yoey wants to say something.
Baby boys in the river because if he didn't, then they would take his slaves out of Egypt.
Oh, that's right. One of those boys was going to take all the slaves out of Egypt.
And did.
Mm-hmm.
Cause he went, but then
Very good. Okay, Yoey. Next time, wait for your comments till after someone finishes reading.
Maybe
Keep going,
next time
Steve.
you can teach in class.
it's okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's give him a piece of cookie and that'll stop it. Okay, his daughter Miriam said to him, Father, your decree is harsher than that of the Pharaoh. Pharaoh only decreed against the male children, but you are decreeing both on the males and on the females. Now no children will be born. Additionally, Pharaoh decreed to kill them only in this world, but your decree is for the world and in the world to come, as those who are not born will not enter the world to come.
It's very interesting. A
Number
child who
2.
was never born, a miscarriage, God forbid, never is born and never enters the world to come. But a child who is born is able to then, after they pass away, to enter the world to come.
Additionally, concerning the wicked Pharaoh, it is uncertain whether or not his decrees will be fulfilled. You, however, are a righteous person and such. Your decrees will certainly be fulfilled, as it is said with regard to the righteousness. You shall decree and it will be established. Amram accepted his daughter's words and remarried his wife with a tambourine. All those, I like my comments better, what?
Keep going.
All who followed his example, the tambourines, not and brought back their wives. If Amram remarried
Yocheved.
Yocheved,
Yocheved. Mm-hmm.
That's okay, right there. You're fine. Keep going.
yeah,
Don't get lost.
I see it right there. Rather than say and married the daughter of Levi, it should have been stated to remarry the daughter of Levi. Bar Yehuda Bar Zavina says he conducted himself just as one would do for the first marriage. He sat her on the decorative carriage, and Aaron and Miriam danced before her. And the ministering angel said, a joyful mother of children.
So basically, he did the second marriage with the whole 9 yards. He did it all over again, just like a first marriage with the whole celebration, the whole joyfulness and everything. So the Rebbe says like this: at birth, Moses already possessed complete perfection. His father was Amram, the leader of his generation. Moreover, among all the leaders of the generations, Amram was one of the few through whom a new mitzvah was introduced. As Maimonides writes, Amram was commanded in additional commandments, such as the commandment of marriage. This places him alongside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom Maimonides lists as figures through whom new commandments were added, attesting to Amram's exceptional stature. So basically, what he's saying is, there was, the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, yes, and that's where the bulk of the commandments were introduced. And many of them were introduced throughout their time in the desert, true. However, many commandments were introduced prior to that. Adam and Eve had 6 commandments. Noah had a 7th. Abraham had, of course, the commandment of bris milah, circumcision, and on. The mitzvah of prayer was added, right? So the fact that somebody received a commandment from God and taught that, practiced that, and taught that to his children makes them a really, really important figure in history. Okay? So Amram, having added the mitzvah of marriage, or been taught by God prophetically the mitzvah of marriage, as opposed to just, having a friend that you happen to live with of the opposite gender, but to actually take it seriously and make a commitment of marriage, that was something that Amram introduced. And the fact that he then went and said, I'm going to divorce Yocheved, and that caused a rift. It caused the whole community to follow suit. But then when Amram remarried, everyone else also remarried. So this was just to state the greatness of Amram, what kind of person he was. So in source 3, we'll see how Maimonides says that humanity was given many laws before the giving of the Torah. And from this, we can see how Amram is a special figure historically. Larry, go ahead.
Soup.
Thank
But
you.
I think
So cool.
I need to eat chicken.
Okay. There's
Okay.
on the kitchen counter, there's some chicken.
Okay, 6 precepts were committed to Adam. 1, the prohibition against the worship of false gods. 2, the prohibition against cursing God. 3, the prohibition against murder. 4, the prohibition against incest and adultery. 5, the prohibition against theft. 6, the command to establish laws and courts of justice. Even though we received all these commands through Moses, and although they are principles that human intellect itself tends to accept, the wording of the Torah indicates that Adam was commanded concerning them.
So in other words, we keep them because we were taught them by Moses on Mount Sinai that this is a Sinaitic commandment, if you want to call it that. But they existed prior to that since Adam. Keep going.
The prohibition against eating flesh from a living animal was later added for Noah, as it states, nevertheless, you may not eat flesh of its life, which is its blood. Thus, there are 7 mitzvot. This
Mhm.
remained unchanged throughout the world until the time of Abraham.
Sprinkle on it.
When Abraham arose, he was commanded, in addition to these, regarding circumcision. He also instituted the morning prayer.
Keep
Was that a
going.
Commandment? Oh.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah, in other words, this is what we call Ruach HaKodesh, like spiritual intuition, holy intuition. And so in other words, he was communicated, it was communicated to him the importance of praying to God. So he started doing that, right? So he instituted the morning prayer. Yitzchak, Isaac,
Separated tithes and instituted an additional prayer service before sunset.
known as Mincha.
Mincha.
coffee.
Yeah.
Jacob added the prohibition against eating the sciatic nerve. He also instituted the evening prayer, known as
Mhm.
Marv.
Yep.
In Egypt, Abram was commanded regarding additional mitzvot. Ultimately, Moses came and the Torah was completed through him.
Okay, so it was kind of a slow process of adding all these mitzvos, but it was very few each generation. Notice how when by Noah there was the 7th commandment, hence why we have the 7 Noahide commandments for all mankind. It's one thing I wanted to say about that.
Remember Noah said no ham.
Oh, no ham, very good. Ham was bad child.
That's where that came from. No hair.
I'm sorry.
So
I can't help myself.
losing my train of thought. Oh, so the Aver Menachai, the not eating the limb of a living animal, prior to Noah, actually, meat wasn't allowed to be eaten at all. For 1,500 years, everybody was vegetarian. It was only after the flood that God permitted the consumption of meat, with the caveat that you cannot eat a live animal or even a limb from a live animal.
The blood of the animal. No blood in the animal.
Blood is fine for non-Jews.
But no, that's what keeping in line with the story here, there's no blood in the meat that should be.
No,
consumed.
these,
No.
no, you
Part of
don't,
the Noahide.
these are Noahide laws.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is not for you.
The Jewish laws require not eating blood either, but the Noahide laws is just to not
Eat a live
pull
animal.
it off the animal while it's stiffling.
That's why when Noah got fed up with ham, he goes, she wants a ham sandwich.
that there was blood and water. He should drink.
You're such a ham.
That's a great question. That's right. If he only has blood or water, he should drink water. But if he only has
And
blood and
remember,
he's gonna die, then you're allowed
Noah
to
was
drink
a
blood
Shaggot, so he wasn't a
for the
Jew.
sake of that. Okay, let's get back on track. The Rebbe, Steve, go ahead.
Moses' mother was Yocheved, the daughter of Levi, immediately when he was born. Before he did anything special, the entire house was filled with light.
So even though he came from the most special lineage, he grew up in Paro's palace and he was educated according to Egyptian philosophy.
I see it spelled here. It wasn't there. I was looking for it. I don't do transliteration.
You were looking for the Yocheved in Hebrew. Got it. You should have told me. I would have pointed exactly where it was.
Well, it was down here.
Third word.
Where was that?
Okay. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah,
Egyptian education in Pharaoh's palace.
This is all in the terms of Moses' birth. After that, however, the upbringing and education was in Pharaoh's household. In the verse states, the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and there the Pharaoh's house. Moses grew, just like Joey over here.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up not only to be the physical sense, flex your muscles, come on, flex that,
Got the muscles?
but was intellectually and spiritually, as Rashi explains, that the Pharaoh appointed him to oversee his household. It is clear that such an appointment also influenced his spiritual and intellectual profile, absorbing the wisdom of Egypt. Since Pharaoh was the king of Egypt, although Egypt subscribed to an alternative impure system, its wisdom was nonetheless Jewish, genuine wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
As well known, the Egyptian wisdom was one of the greatest and deepest forms of knowledge in the entire world. And the reason I'm going back and forth is because these lights are shining on this thing.
As is evident,
As is. Was I?
it's one of the greatest and deepest forms of knowledge in the entire world, as is evident from what Scripture says
Okay, I didn't realize I went that far down.
in
Evident
praising.
from the scripture that in praising the extraordinary wisdom of Solomon, the wisdom of Solomon surpassed all the wisdom of Egypt. Okay.
So that shows you that the wisdom of Egypt was nothing to sneeze at. It was legitimate wisdom, although not holy wisdom. It was other wisdom.
Okay, self-sacrifice for a fellow Jew. Here we see something remarkable. Despite having grown up in Pharaoh's household, the moment that he went to his brothers and saw their suffering, he was pained by their distress and immediately understood that his role was to act on behalf and strive for the welfare. See, Jews
Okay.
always know that, look, you're a Jew.
Social justice.
That's right. Looking out for each other.
That's right.
Absolutely. So let's see this in source 4. Let's see the social justice that's happening in source 4. Now it came to pass in those days that Moses grew up and went out to his brothers and saw their suffering. And he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. He turned this way and that, and seeing that there was no man, he went and he voted for somebody else. No, that's not what it says. He struck the Egyptian
Where the hell is he reading this stuff?
and hit him in the sand. You understand? He took action. He did something about it. He saw a Jew was in pain. He saw a Jew was being tortured, and he stood up and he killed the perpetrator. So let's see what Rashi says.
Stand up and kill your perpetrator.
Moses grew up. I'm not advocating murder, please.
It's
I'm
not
just
murder.
telling.
I will if nobody's looking.
It's not murder.
Very good. You're finally getting the hang of it. Very good. Listen, I didn't tell you. I'm just reading. Moses grew up, says Rashi. Pharaoh appointed him to administer his estate. That's what it means growing up. By the way, who else in a few weeks ago in the Torah portion, who else managed somebody's estate? Joseph, yes, he managed Potiphar's estate. Well, managed and then married his daughter, but yes. Rashi continues to say, what does it mean? He saw their suffering. He turned his heart and eyes to their suffering. Not just he saw it, oh yeah, whatever. He saw it and moved on with his day. No, he paid attention. Further, Rashi says an Egyptian, what kind of Egyptian? He was a taskmaster appointed over the Israelite officers. He would wake them when the rooster crowed to call them to their work. Okay, I guess there's nothing too bad with that, but let's see what he did. Striking a Hebrew, he was lashing and beating him. The Hebrew man was the husband of Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, mentioned in Leviticus 24:10. The taskmaster had laid his eyes on her, and so he woke the Hebrew man at night and took him out of his house. The taskmaster then returned and entered the house and had relations with the wife while she thought it was her husband. It was dark, it was late at night, and that's what happened. When the man returned home, he became aware of what had happened. When the Egyptian saw that he had realized, once he realized that, in other words, he realized that he had his secret was out, he struck him and tormented him all day. He started picking on this guy to try to beat him down.
Just because I had affairs with your wife doesn't mean, you're gonna get in the middle of this.
Exactly. So, and then Rashi explains, what does it mean he turned this way and that? Says he saw what the Egyptian had done to him in the house and what he had done to him in the field, but it should also be understood literally. So in other words, he looked this way and that way. He saw both accounts of both the rape and the torture that he was committing, and on both accounts, he said this guy is worthy of being killed. But also, Rashi says we shouldn't divert away from the simple meaning, which is simply that Moshe was looking both ways, making sure nobody was looking as you would have done, right? Okay, keep going. The Rebbe.
Consider, for many years in childhood and adulthood, Moses lived in the house of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. It seems he was quite satisfied with his situation, and rightly so, since he was not involved in indulgent excesses, God forbid, but was occupied with the wisdom of Egypt. It is clear that while he was in Pharaoh's house at a time when Pharaoh ruled unchallenged, he had no connection or association with those subjected to back-breaking labor. And yet, as soon as he left Pharaoh's house, Moses went out to his brothers and saw their suffering. Their state affected him so deeply that he risked his life by killing the Egyptian who was striking a Hebrew man, one of his brothers. One can readily understand the great danger involved, especially given Egyptian wisdom and power. Indeed, the Torah relates that Pharaoh sought to kill him, and he was forced to flee. It was then that God revealed himself to him from within the burning bush, and this led to the redemption of the Jewish people.
Okay, so this is a very interesting framing that the Rebbe is pointing out over here. That he was somebody who didn't suffer. He was somebody who also didn't take advantage of the Egyptian culture and lifestyle, but he was, he got a good education, as we'd call it here in America, right? He went to college. He was a well-educated person, but he wasn't subject to all the torture that the Jews were subject to. But yet, the first moment that he encountered them and saw that there was an issue, that there was a Jew at risk, he immediately stepped into action, risking his own life to save the Jew.
And the Jew he saved opened up his big stupid mouth.
Yep.
The other two that were watching.
Oh, it was the other two.
Dasan and Aviram.
Yeah,
They turned him in.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so keep going. Self-sacrifice for other Jews, Steve.
This provides guidance for every Jew. A significant number of Jews in the present generation are kin to a child taken captive among non-Jews, whether literally raised among non-Jews or captured by foreign gods within, meaning the evil inclination.
So sometimes we're were held captive by other people in terms of their influence and their impact on our lives and our philosophy and so forth. So we can be captured in that way. And sometimes we're captured by ourselves, by our own evil inclination, our own Yetzer Hara inside of us that takes over and decides to be the boss of our body, which is no bueno.
Okay, however, once the person is influenced and they have some degree of connection to Judaism, one can immediately demand of them self-sacrifice for Judaism and their fellow Jews. At first glance, this seems unreasonable. A person might argue, since I spent my entire life growing up and being educated among non-Jews, and only now have I emerged from that captivity, how can anyone demand that I have self-sacrifice for Judaism and for Jews and feel that this is my entire purpose? The answer is that exactly how it is with Moses. Despite the fact that he grew up in Pharaoh's palace and was deeply immersed in Egyptian wisdom, he immediately understood that his entire existence and purpose was to give of himself to the people of Israel in the self-sacrifice.
With
Mo-
self-sacrifice,
With
yeah.
self-sacrifice. Moses' example provides for the power of all Jews. He was a faithful shepherd, one of the spiritual leaders who draws vitality and godliness into the collective soul of Israel as a whole, even to those held captive to their evil inclination or raised among non-Jews. Since the person was born to Jewish parents, just as Moses was born to Abraham and Yocheved, the moment they emerged from that captivity and began to have a connection to Judaism, they were capable of self-sacrifice for Judaism, whether in relation to themselves or on behalf of other Jews.
Okay, so what the Rebbe is addressing over here is that some people look for excuses and they say, it's not reasonable to expect that everyone should step up for the Jewish people, that everyone should help another Jew. And they say, look, he comes from a different background. He didn't grow up in a strong Jewish community and so on, And the Rebbe says that Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us otherwise. You think you had it bad? Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace. He was completely cut off from his people. But the moment he went out and he saw a Jew that was being persecuted, he intervened immediately. And he didn't make any calculations. He didn't say, well, am I qualified to do this? Do I know enough? Have I studied Jewish history? Do I know? No. He was even willing to risk his life at that very moment. And the truth is that we see this in our generation, that there in Israel's wars in general, but especially since October 7th and Simchas Torah, Jews from all over the world came to support Israel, both financially, but also humanly. Like many young people signed up for the IDF right after October 7th in order to defend the Jewish people. And many of those Jews are Jews who now have been called the October 7th Jews, because something woke up in them. Like, I belong to the Jewish people and I'm going to do something about it, even at the cost of my own comforts and perhaps even my own life. And so the lesson that we learned from Moses, and that, thank God, is being acted upon by many Jews, and maybe we can do more of it ourselves, which is why we're learning this, is that we shouldn't depend on somebody else or someone who has maybe a better background or who's better qualified. Maybe their biography is more outstanding and more appropriate. No. The moment you encounter a Jew in distress, your neshama wakes up and says, I got to do something about it. That's what we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu. So what happened afterwards? What happened after Moshe killed the Egyptian?
With Midian.
Well, word got to Paroi, and Moshe was afraid of the death sentence. And like you said, he went to Midian. And over there he met Yisro and Yisro's daughters, who welcomed him into their home. And he eventually married Yisro's youngest daughter. I think it was his youngest daughter.
Yeah.
Was it the youngest? I don't know why I have that in my head. But he married Zipporah. And he lived there for many years. He had 2 sons, and he was a shepherd going around with the sheep for his father-in-law. And one day he wandered off from Midian to the Sinai desert, a short hop, skip, and a jump, and he saw a bush with fire that wasn't bush wasn't being consumed, and
Remember, it wasn't in Egypt
it was not in Egypt. It was in the Sinai Desert.
because God went and
The Sinai Desert should have been still part of Israel, if not for some stupid political moves that gave back the Sinai to Egypt. But in any case,
Who won't go there?
what's that?
Who won't go there?
Who won't go there?
God.
to Egypt.
To Egypt?
Right.
What do you mean he won't go
Go
there?
down to Egypt.
That's I brought you down to Egypt, and I will
I
take you out of
brought
it.
down.
Yeah, but he'd take
Down.
him out, but he never.
He said you're not allowed to go back to Egypt.
Right.
That's why.
Well, God is everywhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that's why the temple wasn't built there.
Oh, well, of
The
course.
presence, yeah.
Yeah. So he sees the burning bush, and God tells him, I have a message for you. You got to go back to Egypt and let my people know that someone else will let my people go. All right, source 5. Larry?
Moses was pasturing the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. He led the flocks to the wilderness and came to the mountain of God, to Horeb. An angel of God appeared to him in a flame of fire from within a thorn bush. Behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet it was not consumed. Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight. Why does this bush and not burn up? God said he turned to look. God saw that he had turned to look, and God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And he replied, Here I am. God said, Do not come closer. Remove your sandals from your feet and your socks too.
I got it. You knew that this was here.
Well, yeah, I did read this before.
I got busted. What?
What do you mean?
I remember we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you bring that up? Basically.
I wonder
I
why.
wonder why.
Anyway, so he told him to take off his sandals. For
Yeah.
this place on which you stand is holy ground.
Okay, so let's see what the Medrash, Shemos Rabbah, says about this encounter. Steve, you want to read that one?
Yes.
Shemot Rabbah 2:2.
Yeah. When Moses was shepherding Yitro's sheep, one sheep ran away from the flock. Moses ran after it until they reached the shaded area, and a spring appeared. The sheep began to drink, and Moses said, I didn't know that they were thirsty and tired. He put the sheep over.
No, he said, I didn't know you were thirsty and
we
tired.
were thirsty.
Oh, my little Shepsela, I didn't know you were thirsty and tired. You should have told me.
Sheep, so
Okay. I didn't know you were thirsty and tired. Okay, he put the sheep over his shoulder and went. God said, You had mercy on the sheep. By your life, you will be a shepherd in my sheep Israel. Indeed, Moses was a shepherd.
So that's what it says. It doesn't just say that Moshe haya ro'eh, that he was See, if you look in the translation of source 5, it says Moses was pasturing. But that could also be read as Moses was a shepherd, meaning not just that he did the act of pasturing, but he was a shepherd. He embodied being a shepherd in his personality, in his care and concern, even for that one sheep that ran away from the flock. In other words, you might say, well, I have a bigger flock to worry about. I'm not going to care about the one sheep. Well, too bad. It's a cost of doing business. Said no, I'm going to look after that one sheep. So what's the lesson? And this is I would say, a quintessential Chabad lesson about helping the lost sheep helping the lost sheep led to the burning bush. The Rebbe says, in this matter, as in all aspects of the Torah, there's a lesson for every Jew. The Baal Shem Tov famously explained that the burning bush is a reference to the material world, which in comparison to the spiritual is called a lowly bush. It's called a sineh, a lowly bush. Within that very place, we must perceive the flame of fire. The burning bush symbolizes the material world. It is precisely in the lowly, limited, and physical place that the flame, the spiritual inspiration, is meant to be revealed. Divine revelation is not intended only for places of obvious holiness, such as the study hall or moments of prayer, but is meant to appear within life itself, in business, at home, within the physical body, and in everyday worldly encounters, right? Moses didn't meet God in the synagogue. He met him in the middle of the desert. This is the task of every Jew, to reveal the divine presence precisely in the material part of the world, not to run from reality, but to illuminate it, not to abandon the bush, but to turn it into a vessel for the revelation of godliness. So normally you would say, how would a thorn bush catch fire, right? You'd think the whole thing would be consumed and be down to the ground in seconds. We're not talking about a big leafy, bushy bush, but it's actually a very plain, very something that normally wouldn't be a good vessel for fire to rest in. But yet it was specifically in that bush that the fire did rest. So the Rebbe continues, from this we learn, how can we reach the experience of the angel of God, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from within the bush, as Moses merited. It is achieved specifically by devoting ourselves to the flock, running after them and caring for their needs. Through this commitment, we are then able to see the vision of the flame of fire. Now there's a special emphasis, the Rebbe says. How did Moses actually arrive at Mount Sinai? Moses was shepherding the flock around Midian. It all began with a small sheep that wandered away from the herd to drink some water. Moses did not ignore it. He did not say, it's just one sheep. He did not give up on it. He cared for it, ran after it a long distance, found it and returned it to the flock. You know, every time you learn the story of Moses running after the sheep, right? You think, he was going along the path, and some 50 meters off the path, the sheep wandered down into the ditch, and he went and picked up the sheep. That's not the way the Rebbe is describing it here. The Rebbe says, no, he followed a sheep all the way to the Sinai desert, all the way from Midian to the Sinai desert. Where's Midian in modern day geography? Somewhere like Syria, Iraq, where?
Yeah, Los Angeles.
Midian? No.
No, it's in Syria.
Syria. Okay.
Literally, yes.
So it's quite a trip, right? He found it and returned it to the flock. It was precisely this devotion, the concern for the small and weak, that led Moses to the place where he merited the divine revelation. From the pursuit of a single sheep, Moses arrived at Mount Sinai, where God revealed himself to him in the burning bush. This is a profound lesson for every Jew. The path to a high spiritual experience, to revelation and closeness to God, does not begin by isolating oneself or rising above the world, but through devotion to others. With sensitivity, compassion, and the willingness to stop everything to help another, this is how we open the path to our personal Mount Sinai. So here's what the Rebbe is saying. If I told you, like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to get close to God? Yeah, I mean, I think most of us who are somewhat spiritually attuned to some degree or another would say, yeah, give me God. Give me some of that. How do I get a spoonful of God in my life, right? So some would think that the way to get close to God is, be a nerdy professor in a Jewish sense, and open up your Talmud, open up your prayer book, put your tefillin on, throw your talis over your head, sit in the synagogue 17 hours a day, and then you're gonna feel God, right? And maybe you'll experience a moment of godly revelation, a burning bush, so to speak, moment. The Rebbe says, no, that's not how you get to the burning bush. You know how to get to the burning bush? Chase down that one Jew, and specifically the Jew who wanders off from Shul. Specifically, the Jew who hasn't shown up to shul in years and years and years. Chase him down, find him. Maybe he's upstairs in the corner of a gas station that you never suspect what's a Jew doing there. But find him, track him down, and bring him close to Yiddishkeit. That's how we get to the moment of closeness with divinity. And here's a story related by the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, along these lines. Source 6, Larry.
The Tzemach Tzedek was accustomed to seeing his late grandfather.
It's a long story. But
The
go
elder
ahead.
Rebbe, after he had departed, in either wake or nighttime visions. He would resolve all his doubts in both the revealed and hidden areas of Torah.
So, just to give you a little background, the Tzemach Tzedek's mother was Rebbetzin Devorah Leah, the daughter of the Alter Rebbe. So just to give you the family tree, the Alter Rebbe had several children. One of them was his daughter Devorah Leah. Another one was his son Dov Ber, who became his successor. Now Devorah Leah, 1 year before Rosh Hashanah, the Alter Rebbe would bless each of his children, and she stopped her father in his tracks, and she said, "Don't bless me." Now, after the fact, we see what happened. She passed away the day after Rosh Hashanah. What was she saying? She's saying, "Father, if you bless me, then the decree in heaven of you leaving this world is going to take effect. So don't bless me." In other words, I want to take your place. You should remain here, but on condition that you look after my son, Menachem Mendel, who was only 2 years old at the time. So the Alter Rebbe agreed to this term. He said, "Okay, I won't bless you. I won't give you a sweet year of good life, of long life." He didn't bless her, and sure enough, she passed away 3 days later. And the Alter Rebbe raised the Tzemach Tzedek, Menachem Mendel, in his own home. There's stories of the Tzemach Tzedek as a child taking potato peels and pretending to put on tefillin with the potato peels. There's a whole peekaboo game that they played, where he said, "Where's Zayda?" until he says, when he went to hide, and then when the Alter Rebbe appeared, he said, "Oh, das is Zayda. This is my grandfather." Anyways, they had a very, very close relationship, is what I'm trying to say. And so even after the Alter Rebbe passed away, the Tzemach Tzedek would have these visions of his grandfather in which all of these Torah questions would be answered. Anyways, keep going. Once
when the Tzemach Tzedek was sitting alone in his room, engrossed in his studies, several questions arose that he did not know how to resolve. He greatly yearned to see his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, as was his custom, but he was unable to do so, and he felt great sorrow because of it. One morning, the Tzemach Tzedek went to pray at the synagogue of his father-in-law, the Metlier Rebbe of blessed memory. While passing through the market, he encountered one of the townsmen, Rabbi Mordecai Eliyahu, a simple and God-fearing man who earned a living through his work in the market. That day was market day, and the man asked Tzemach Tzedek to lend him some funds until evening or the following morning, as on that day he could make a profit in the market. The Tzemach Tzedek replied that after the prayers, when he would return home, he would give him the loans.
Okay, so pause right here. How would you judge that encounter? Just having read just until here. Does that sound like a normal story, a good story, a bad story? Where does it sound like?
That's a good story because a person needs a loan, and
Right.
he's going to do his prayers, and then he's going to go home and get the money.
Right? That's what we would think.
So it's helping a Jew.
You're helping a Jew, and I mean, it only makes sense. He's about to pray. He has his talus over his shoulder. As soon as I'm done praying, I'll go help you out. Well, surprise, surprise. See what happens next.
When the Tzemach Tzedek entered the synagogue, he recalled the holy teaching. Rabbi Eliezer gave a coin to a poor man, and after that he prayed, and also the teaching, a loan is greater than charity. The Tzemach Tzedek reflected that it was wrong not to give Rabbi Mordecai Eliyahu the loan he requested immediately. He returned home, took the money, and went to the market to find Rabbi Mordecai Eliyahu. By now, the villagers had already gathered with their carts and wares, and it was difficult to locate Rabbi Mordecai Eliyahu among them. When he finally found him, he with their carts and wares,
And then when he finally found them, he gave him the loan.
When he finally found him, he with their carts and wares.
I think that's a duplicate. He gave him the loan and then returned to the synagogue to pray.
Yeah, it is a repeat here, so I have to jump down here. When he finally found him, he gave him the loan and then returned to the synagogue to pray.
Yeah.
When the holy Tzemach Tzedek wrapped himself in his talit and tefillin, he suddenly saw the Alter Rebbe with a shining countenance. The Alter Rebbe said to him, "One who gives a loan to a Jew with a whole heart without any ulterior motives, and does a favor for a Jew with love is as commanded. Love your fellow as yourself. The gates of the heavenly palaces are open before him. When the Tzemach Tzedek recounted this story to his son, the Rebbe Marash, in the year of 1846, he said, just as one helps a Jew in livelihood, even to earn 70 small coins from a tiny calf, all the gates of the heavenly palaces are opened for him.
Over here it actually says 70 kopecks. So the point is that he realized that here he's going to pray, he's taking care of his own religious ambitions or his religious obligations. And there's some Jew who needs to make some money in the marketplace. You might think, well, I got to take care of what I need to take care of, and then I'll go help somebody else. And he realized by his own reflection, and which is a lesson in and of itself, that we should always be conscious and thinking about what we're doing and checking ourselves and making sure that what we're doing is actually correct. Even though it might look good, it's not always the correct decision. And he's like, wait a second, I should really help this person right now. And he did that. And it was a schlep, as you saw, it describes. It was a busy marketplace. He's going through the crowds. He's looking, where's Mordechai Eliyahu? Hello, hello. And everybody's, chickens, $5, cucumbers. And he's like, hello, anybody see my friend? You know, finally he finds him, right? Can you imagine the schlep and the agony, the inconvenience that he had to go through just to track this guy down? But he realized that that's what's demanded right now. And he had confirmation that what he did was correct, because his grandfather, for the first time in a very long time, finally revealed himself to him and said, hey, you did good. So let's see what the Rebbe says. Steve.
It should be noted that righteous individuals, even while they are in this world, have full mastery over affairs.
Over their affairs.
Their affairs, and are more so after they transcend the limits and constraints of the body. If so, the reason that the Elder Rebbe was not revealed earlier, but only after the event described above, is because this is how the Elder Rebbe himself wished to be.
Wished it to be.
Wished it to be, okay. In accordance with the spiritual state in this mode of service. Like all accounts we hear from our reverend leaders, this story also carries as practical guidance for each one of us in our own lives. When one visits to reach when one wishes to reach highest levels in understanding and grasping the Torah, it requires intense effort and concentration in Torah study. Physical matters, our own or others, can interfere with this.
Mhm.
This is all the more when we need to do favor for another Jew, and the way that this is specifically suited to them. This cannot be done casually or by the way. It requires active investment in a person's situation.
The other person's.
The other person's whatever.
No, it's not whatever. It's active investment in the other person's situation.
Play with you. Us.
Okay.
Carefully considering their needs. You're no fun to play with. And providing
I'm very literal. I'm sorry.
matter tailored to them. It is clear that such an investment will disrupt our concentration and comprehension of Torah study, especially when we are striving to reach an advanced level. So I'm trying to get to that level right
We
there.
really are disrupting our concentration and comprehension. of-
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, understanding
So-
Torah as a divine gift.
So,
Okay.
so this is an important part to take note of, because, you know, if you have to do a pie chart, what level, what percentage of success in Torah study is decided by our concentration? Meaning, if you did a pie chart, you know, 100% success in Torah study, right? What percentage is our concentration? What percentage is our, you know, actual intellectual abilities, right? Being a smart person, right? What percentage is the environment that we're in, like meaning the spiritual environment, right? What percentage is the teacher? What percentage is, you know, God's blessing?
Didn't you forget forget a slice of that pie, which is
Maybe.
the doing of it? Because you can spend
Well-
3 minutes in concentration and everything else, but if you don't bring it into action,
It's true, but there is a exercise of studying Torah in and of itself, which has intrinsic value in and of itself.
of course.
And I'm saying in that world, in that realm of studying Torah, what percentage does our own efforts play? What percentage does God's blessing play? Right? So let's see. The Rebbe is gonna, maybe not in a pie chart, but the Rebbe will address that factor.
I'm waiting for the pie.
Since
Okay, since the Torah is God's wisdom, we can only receive it as a gift. I want that pie. We find even with Moses, of whom it is said that he would study Torah and then forget it until it was given to him as a gift. Since giving the gift is doing the good to the recipient, when a person does good to God's child, as all Jews are
since
God's
gifts are given when the recipient gives the giver pleasure.
Oh, you're
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay. All Jews are God's children. We are given a gift, receiving the Torah as a gift.
So when do people give us gifts? When we do good things for them. So when does God give us the gift of Torah? When we do good things for God. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Through this gift, we reach higher level in the Torah than through effort alone. This is the meaning of the story mentioned above. How did the Samad Zedek succeed in seeing the altar Rebbe after his passing? Not through prayer, Torah study, or supplication. None of that would be sufficient. Rather, he needed to perform an act of kindness for another Jew in a material matter, assisting their livelihood. This is similar to the story of the first shepherd. Moses was a shepherd. How did he reach the state of angel of the Lord appeared before him in the flame of fire from within the bush? By running after a young sheep, caring for it, providing it with food and drink suited to his needs. Then he made it kosher.
So
Made it.
oh, it was a kosher animal. So what the Rebbe is saying, if you want blessing in learning Torah, go help another Jew. So what's going on over here is the Rebbe is saying when we give charity, when we help somebody else, we step outside ourselves, we feel more and connect more to spirituality. Why is that? Because the fact that we can at all be connected to spirituality is not something natural. By human nature, we're occupied with ourselves. We're occupied with our own needs, our own limitations. But the fact that we can have any sort of spiritual interaction or experience is really a kindness and a gift from above. So God is telling us that when we overcome our ego and give of ourselves to another Jew, then God says, I will also give as a gift to you a connection to spirituality, a soulful connection. It's actually related to what we were talking about in the class yesterday on the Jewish value of giving. You can look it up on YouTube. That when we give to others, when we're a good custodian of God's money, God says, okay, I'm going to invest more money in you because you're a good custodian. Almost like you're a good banker and you provide good dividends when I put the funds by you. But also in our ego, in our time, when we invest our time in other people, when we give of ourselves to another Jew, God says, I'm going to give to you. I'm going to give more spiritual connection to you. And that's why it's so important that we give charity before prayer. Because what is prayer ultimately? Prayer is the word tefillah means connection. We want to connect to God. Of course, there's things we want from God. There's the ATM machine aspect of prayer, although that's a very crass way of looking at prayer. But ultimately, prayer is about connecting to God. So if we want a better connection, if we want a better signal, right, to use a cell phone example, when we're praying to God, it has to be preceded by giving charity. even if it's just a small act, even if it's dropping a nickel in the pushka. There's no more pennies anymore. We used to say put a penny in the pushka, but now put a nickel in the pushka or swipe your card, whatever it might be, before you daven, then the davening is a better davening, which is not something the Rebbe made up. In fact, it says in the Talmud that sometimes a person feels that they aren't really connecting to the mitzvahs they perform. That, sometimes the first time you put on tefillin, it's very exciting, it's invigorating, it feels deeply Jewish, and then a year or two passes, and it's just mechanical. It's just you're trying to race to see how quickly you can get from the bicep to the palm. Can you do it in 7 seconds or less, right? So and you're not thinking about the moving experience and the ultimate spiritual moment. I remember that moment, that crispy new pair of tefillin that my father bought me from Israel, putting that on, it was like very, very special. And then time passes and it doesn't feel as special. So when that happens, a person might think to themselves, okay, I have to really become more spiritual. I have to learn more Torah. I have to learn more Chassidus. I have to delve deeper into my prayers. And then, that connection, that spiritual spark is going to return. And the Gemara tells us no. Rabbi Elazar would give a coin to a poor man, and then he'd pray. Why? Because Ani b'tzedek echazeh fanecha. It says in Tehillim, I with tzedek, meaning with tzedakah, I will see your face. In other words, I only come to face God after I've given tzedakah. So you want to experience closeness with God, it happens through giving, through stepping outside ourselves. So, do we have time for one more lesson from Moses?
Absolutely.
Okay.
4-7, without
So,
question.
Before, okay, without questions, very good. So just to give a little background, after the revelation at Mount Sinai, Moses, meaning by the burning bush, which was at Mount Sinai, Moses obeys God, goes to Egypt, and he goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people go, right? And Pharaoh says, I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know God. I'm not letting the Jewish people go. And in fact, I'm going to make the slavery even harder. Until then, they gave them parts, but they didn't pay them for the labor. Now they made them make the parts, and they didn't pay them for their labor, right? Till then, they gave them straw, and then they said, no, you're going to go fetch your own straw and make bricks with them. So,
You fired it high enough temperature, you don't need the straw.
Has Pharaoh been resurrected?
No,
no.
We've been reincarnated?
no, he went through the sewage treatment plant.
Well, yeah, he went. That's right. By the way, literally, God flushed the toilet on the Egyptians. That's pretty much what happened over there. So, you can imagine when Moses comes to Pharaoh, he tries to do some bargaining, some negotiating, and it fails miserably. The Jews find out what happened, and their pain and despair only increases. And they start kvetching to Moshe and Aaron, what are you doing? What have you done to us? You're only making trouble over here. Instead of redemption, you made everything worse. So that's source 7.
They met Moses and Aaron standing before them as they were leaving Pharaoh's presence. And they said to them, may the Lord see and judge you, for you have made us aberrant in the eyes of Pharaoh and his servants, placing a sword in their hand to kill us. Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you harmed this people? Why did you send me? Since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has harmed this people, and you have not delivered the people. God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am God. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but by my name, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, Havaya, I was not made known to them. Rashi, God said to him, what a shame those unforgettable patriarchs are lost and have no replacement. Wait a minute. God said,
Basically, he's telling Moses, like, all you're doing all day is complaining. I remember the good old days when my people, were more loyal and faithful to me, and they didn't kvetch all day.
Come on.
Okay, sorry, I was lost among the hay and the bricks.
So you're saying the patriarchs, they were much nicer to me.
God said to him, what a shame those unforgiven patriarchs are lost and have no replacement. I must lament the death of the patriarch. Many times I revealed myself to them as the Almighty God, and they did not ask me, what is your name? But you asked, what is your name? What is his name? What shall I say to them?
Right. So in other words, Moses is saying, well, if the Jews ask me what's his name, then I need to know what to tell them. So what's the lesson we can learn from this? Could you imagine? Imagine you're given a mission by God, right? Imagine God tells you, Larry, I want you to pick yourself up, to move to a different country, and over there, I want you to give a message to so-and-so. And you're like, wow, God spoke to me of all people. Like, why is he talking to me? And you show up there, you do what you're supposed to do, and everybody just starts yelling at you and disassociating with you, saying, what an idiot. You're just ruining my life. Yeah, that too. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how rejected you'd feel? It'd be like, I'm gonna go back home. Like, I'm not interested in this. Nobody wants me here.
That's right.
See, when I burn my tongue on the soup, I go, gosh, I'm gonna be just like Moshe.
Listen, you're supposed to live with the parsha, You're supposed
Is
to
that why you
experience
have
it.
a speech impediment?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Anyway, so what's the lesson we can learn when we don't see success? That's what Steve's gonna tell us now.
Right.
We're gonna look at, okay. God said to him, what a shame those
Nope.
And we read that already. When we don't see success.
Okay. The lesson from this is as follows. When we find ourselves in a situation where we see no success in our spiritual work, no visible results from our efforts, and are therefore tempted to stop and give up, the story of Moses provides guidance. When Moses complained, why have you sent me when this mission seems to be fruitless? Since ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, the people have suffered, and you have not delivered your people as they were told. You have made us odious in the eyes of the Pharaoh. Why not? God responded, I appeared to Abraham, etc. I missed the past generations of the ooh, that's a bad one.
Mhm.
Of patriarchs who didn't say such things to me as you did.
Like, oh, I missed the good old days. Right.
It's like, oh, Moshe, you're in deep whatever. This means that we should not raise objections or give up. Even when results are not apparent, we must continue to work and exert effort.
So basically, Hashem's saying, here comes Moshe. He did what he was supposed to do, and he wasn't happy with the results. And so he went to HR to complain. And God's like, excuse me, you're not in the results department. You're in the mission department.
And God is the HR department.
Yeah.
So he's speaking to the wrong person. This
Yeah.
principle guided Moshe in continuing his mission. God's rebuke is never merely for the sake of rebuke. It is meant to spur us to action, as it says in Isaiah.
In other words, it's not rebuke, it's counsel.
Right. Why are you beaten when you're still continue to rebel? This means why continue to strike? You should not achieve anything. What is good is
What good is it?
What good is it to strike for you will not prevent it. For after the blows you will continue to sin. This is said in regards to the words of the prophet, and all the more so regarding the words of God.
Okay, so if a prophet tells you, like, listen, why are you trying to bang your head against the wall? You got to actually change. You got to change your behavior for once. So the Rebbe tells us the same applies to every Jew. We can feel like we aren't accomplishing anything, seeing that we are immersed in impurity and must constantly work and strive without apparent results, starting over again the next day. Every morning you go back to work, back to the drawing board. It's like all over again. Similarly, it may seem we aren't achieving anything in the realm of helping others. We must not despair or stop our efforts. Instead, we must continue to work and exert ourselves, trusting that in the end, our efforts will certainly bear fruit, and we will succeed in our work. I think for me, this was the most poignant lesson that the Rebbe is telling us. You know, as an emissary of God, which we all are. We're all on a shlichus. We're all on a mission here on earth. And like even Moses, who had ultimate clarity of what he was meant to do, God gave him a script. He's like, here's what you go. Read from the paper. I know it might be hard, but read these words. Let my people go. Can you say that? He said, yes, exactly. Like that. Just go to Pharaoh and say that to him. And he did it. And things just went south. Right? They were going to go north, I think, northeast out of Egypt later. But can you imagine in that situation feeling like, what's the point of all this? The point of all this is to stop asking, what's the point of all this? The point is to say that if this is what God wants me to do, I'm going to trudge ahead. I'm going to move forward. And like I said earlier, we are not in the results department. We are in the mission department. We got to get stuff done. Hashem tells us what to do, and we go do it. And thankfully, in this generation, we're blessed to have a Rebbe who gives us even more specific guidance of what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to reach out to our fellow Jew with tefillin, with mezuzahs, with Shabbos candles, very, very specific instructions of how to reach out to our fellow Jews. And if we don't succeed the first time, it doesn't mean we stop. How many times did Moses go back to Pharaoh? More than 10 times, right? And yet, each time he was faced with rejection and threats and all sorts of terrible things, and he didn't relent. And that's something that we could learn. Because thankfully, we're not being told to face Pharaoh. We're being told to face our fellow Jews, to chase after that sheep in the desert, and to find them, pick them up, show them love, show them Yiddishkeit, teach them a Torah lesson, bring them to shul, share with them a mitzvah, and with that, we'll be able to on-ramp them into the direction to the promised land. L'chaim, l'chaim.
What happened, Wolfgang? Where is it?